All right, so the topic for today is how do you pick out a turtle or tortoise? So let's talk first about tortoises and turtles and how they're related.
Sure, they are related. And so, what we like to say here in the United States, at least, is that sea turtles, tortoises, turtles, they are all turtles. Tortoises are one family of turtles. Just like chameleons are a family of lizards, tortoises are a family of turtles. So that is how we separate them. There's a lot more turtles than there are tortoises. Tortoises is only a pretty small group, but there's a couple hundred different turtle species. Tortoises tend to live on land. Turtles typically live in the water, but there's some exceptions to that rule.
Box turtles.
Box turtles.
Can I jump in a question from a non-turtle person?
Absolutely.
I see you've got turtles and tortoises, and we'll go ahead and just for my sake, say, okay, turtles are the aquatic and tortoises are the terrestrial.
Yep.
Are those two different communities? I'm not a tortoise person at all, turtle person. I don't know, but are they different communities?
I mean, it's. I would compare it to people that keep montane chameleons versus people that keep Madagascar chameleons. There definitely is the turtle and tortoise community, but yeah, there's sub-communities in there. And some people only do tortoises, some people only do turtles. But a turtle is a turtle is a turtle, no matter what you call it. So we're pretty united.
Okay. It's just those are, even though with taxonomically they may be related, husbandry-wise, it's just two totally different approaches.
Yeah, and that's what we try to stress, I think, as someone that does education videos about turtles and tortoises on YouTube, is that just because it's called a tortoise doesn't mean that it requires the same husbandry. Not all the tortoises require the same husbandry, just like not all the chameleons require the same husbandry. So that's what I try to get across.
Okay. All right.
So tell us the secret, Tom. Here you are. You walk into a reptile show, and there's these little turtles, baby turtles that everybody has.
Yep.
There's these tortoises, redfoots. There's these sulculata tortoises, which are really tiny when you get them at the reptile show, and all these things. How do you pick a tortoise out or a turtle?
So a big general overarching rule, if you want to pick a healthy turtle or tortoise, you need to pick one at a show that is active. If it's active, chances are that it's going to be healthy. Just because a tortoise isn't active, doesn't mean it's unhealthy. But yeah, if you pick an animal that's moving around, alert, is swimming a lot, kind of climbing over all the other animals, chances are that animal is going to be a good one, right? So if you just do that, chances are that you're going to have a fairly healthy animal. But you mentioned the small, tiny turtles. I'm really curious, Bill, if you saw any baby turtles for sale out at your reptile show or not, because that's one of the big things you have to decide when you're buying a turtle or tortoise.
I did not.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I remember there was a time where all of a sudden there were a bunch of baby turtles being sold. And it was strange because we had already had that regulation that you can't sell babies.
Yep.
And then there was this brief window where apparently people decided that didn't apply.
Yeah.
And so there was at least one show where just a bunch of baby turtles all over and then slammed shut. And so now I haven't seen baby turtles for a while.
So Sean and I see a whole table full of baby turtles, like
or
100 maybe of them. And so in this country, can you imagine if it was illegal to sell a chameleon under 3 months old, for example? It might save some of these problems. But exactly. So in the turtle world, this is why you cannot walk into a pet shop that's a big box store and follows the federal regulations and find a turtle or a tortoise under 4 inches. You just can't. Now, the local shops, you can. The shows, from what I understand, you go to the NRBC, which Sean is going to. Sean, you're not going to see any baby turtles there because that show enforces the 4-inch law. But our local shows, no, the health department isn't there. The USDA isn't enforcing that rule. So you can buy baby turtles. So that is one of the most important things you need to know, is that technically people should not be selling a turtle under 4 inches as a pet. And that is how the regulations read.
Well,
So
wait,
what's the
what is
background
this
on that?
about people deciding whether to enforce them or not? What's
Well, I mean, it's spotty enforcement, and what I've seen is that the USDA will come out. Maybe they get a few complaints, a particular show or a flea market somewhere in the country. They take that as an opportunity to sort of bust that show, make a lot of press. That press makes national news. People are reminded of this almost 50-year-old law, and then they kind of retract and stop selling baby turtles again. So it's just kind of this roller coaster of people doing it a little bit. Maybe somebody gets slapped, and so people pull back, and then they do it again. Other people see other people doing it, so everybody does it, and then another slap comes down, and they retreat.
okay?
Really interesting, huh?
50-year-old law. I remember hearing about it, but I don't know if there's any truth to what I know.
Salmonella bacteria. It's 100% a public health issue. The reasoning for the 4-inch law, Sean, was because a child that had a pet turtle would not be able to put that turtle physically in their mouth if it was more than 4 inches long, that shell. And that, yeah. So as you know, I could probably swipe a turtle that had salmonella and stick it in my finger, and I would become contaminated. But yeah, that's why it all started. And I don't remember it. I'm not quite there, but in the 60s, early 70s, dime stores sold millions of baby turtles, mostly red-eared sliders. They were hatched on these big turtle farms in Louisiana that still exist. A lot of those animals now are shipped overseas. And quite frankly, one of the reasons why red-eared sliders started being shipped all over the world was because of the 4-inch law. These big turtle farms couldn't sell them in the United States anymore, so they're like, oh, well, maybe we can sell them abroad. So really interesting. And the bottom line is that the regulation is still on the books. And technically, if you walk into a store that's clearly a pet store that's selling a turtle or tortoise under 4 inches, there's no gray area there. It's a pet store, right? So the law says that they can be sold for bona fide education and scientific purposes. And so that is why you see when anybody is selling a baby turtle online, the direct quote, turtles sold under 4 inches are for educational or scientific purposes only. Now, a couple of things about that. Baby turtles are super cute, but it tends to lead to people buying small turtles that get gigantic that they then dump, like red-eared sliders and sulcata tortoises. And the other thing is baby turtles, just like chameleons and lizards, they produce a lot of babies, and not every one of those is going to be fit for this world, right? So you're taking a risk buying a baby turtle. And, you could get one that has some type of genetic or congenital issue that isn't visible, and you may end up with a sick turtle pretty quickly. So you buy an animal over 4 inches, chances are, it's lived for a couple of years, and at least it's got a decent start.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean,
now,
great
one other thing.
chameleons to to
Yeah.
buy them over a year, and
Yeah.
maybe 6 months would be fair,
Yeah.
but because their lifespan isn't 50 or 70 years,
Yeah.
100 years or whatever. But
So one other weird thing that this 4-inch law has done that's relevant to reptile shows and picking out a turtle or tortoise, it's not legal to import into this country tortoises under 4 inches. Which is interesting in Europe because they have the exact opposite law. They have to be under 4 inches to import them. But so why is that? Well, it's because of that salmonella rule. But that means if you ever see a redfoot tortoise or a Greek tortoise that's right around that 4 or 5 inch mark, and you see a lot of them, someone offering a bunch of these for sale, like all of the sudden, that means they're imported, often ranched or actually captive bred on farms. They exist in South America and Europe. So that's kind of a dead giveaway. You see a tank full of 4 to 5 inch tortoises, those were probably imported. So I can't think of any other animal where you can kind of tell that just by the size of the animal. And I've learned to pick out these things by watching, just thousands of ads over the years.
So what has that done to the breeding community as far as the hobbyists?
Sure.
Because when I go to these shows, like there was a show at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles, and then I saw a whole lot of baby turtles there. It must have been in one of these windows
for sale.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
And so, obviously, there's breeding going on. So it's not like it's killed the breeding. So people
Correct.
are breeding.
Yep.
And if you're breeding, you're obviously finding homes for all those babies.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that working?
So the market is really interesting, right? So you basically have the turtle market for the big box stores. And where those turtles are coming, where are they coming from? They're coming from these big commercial turtle farms in Louisiana, and they're able to raise them up to 4 inches. So if you Google Louisiana turtle farm, there's even a Louisiana Turtle Farmers Association or something like that, a trade group, right? And they lobby as a block. So that's where your big box store animals are coming from, water turtles. They're starting now to get them from breeders in Europe and South America too. So that's your typical pet market, is big time breeding of pretty common species. Then you have your sort of people that are really interested in breeding turtles and tortoises like me, that kind of do it as a hobby level. We're really passionate. We look at it more as having assurance colonies of these super rare turtles and tortoises because they're so endangered in the wild. We in that community talk a lot about are we really doing conservation, or should it be called preservation? And we're doing it as a hobby. We're gifting a lot of animals to other people. We sell animals to to others, and then there are a handful of people that are making a living breeding turtles and tortoises of lots of different species and lots of different kinds. And most of those people are in warm places where they can house lots of animals outside year round. It's very, very difficult to breed turtles and tortoises in the numbers to be commercially successful, like in Ohio, for example. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, that runs the gamut of the market, anywhere from the big box store. And if you magnify the same thing with veiled chameleons, but these 4-inch turtles are in every Petco and PetSmart in the country, and they might have 5. So at any one time, there's a couple thousand red-eared sliders that will probably become throwaway pets after a year or two, and that's really sad. So it's hard for like a small business to compete with that for just the average pet market person buying a turtle. And who hasn't had a turtle as a pet? I don't know. What percentage of this country had a turtle as a pet versus a snake or a lizard? I don't know, but I bet it's high.
I had a tortoise.
There you go. Yeah. So it's this really interesting thing, and the group that I belong to is called the Turtle and Tortoise Preservation Group. They have a meeting every November in Mesa, Arizona, and that's where your hardcore turtle and tortoise breeders and hobbyists, even zookeepers, academics, vets, we get together for 2 days and have turtle care talks for 2 days. We invite a couple keynote speakers, usually bring someone in from Europe and learn how they're doing things over there. And it's spectacular. I strongly encourage anybody interested in the turtle community to check out that conference. It's coming up.
Okay.
I might go there, but maybe I'll just have you as my beat reporter.
I certainly could.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that, Sean.
All right. We've got you on tape. You've agreed. But I may still go.
You
All
should.
right, so,
It's great.
All right. How big is the turtle and tortoise community, and is it growing?
I think it's huge. I mean, the main, obviously I'm on your chameleon enthusiast group. And how many members do you have on that? And tens of thousands?
It's over 10,000.
Yeah. So there's multiple tortoise groups that have 50,000 members, for example. So it's big. It's a big community. It's international. The British have a history of taking a pet tortoise and putting it in their backyards, which they call their gardens. It's basically a ready-made tortoise enclosure. So it's a global community. We exchange lots of information. Some people have animals that literally have been in their family for 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
They became popular pets after World War II, and they still have those same pets that their grandma might have had. So, I mean, I think that's what separates turtles from some of the other reptiles is people don't even think about them as a reptile. So they're very accessible. They're very friendly. That's sort of their reputation, calm, placid animals. They're not all that way, but it's big. The community is huge. Okay. It's dedicated and it's passionate. But it's not snakes, though. It's not snake big. But it might be, though, when you add up all the kids that have a pet turtle. They're part of that community. They're just not interacting very much with others. So yeah, it's big. Turtles are popular pets.
Now, would you say it's growing?
Oh, yeah, it's growing.
And the context of this question is
Sure.
We've seen a lot of growth in the reptile community, and I think it's the community is generally speaking is becoming more mainstream, and you're getting more mainstream people in it, and so a number of our individual communities are growing, and the question is the turtle tortoise community kind of didn't start off with the shall I say the handicaps, like say the snake community. For the longest time it was, oh my gosh, the snake is scary, and the people who have snakes are scary. Turtles and tortoises never had that problem. They were always
exactly
cute.
Yeah, I mean, I
met anybody who didn't like a turtle.
And that's the difference. But
nobody hates them. I mean,
so I think the growth is not in the popularity of turtles, but it's of the understanding and the knowledge and the husbandry of them. And we've been keeping them forever, but now we're really starting to understand what exactly they need. Many of these things, if you lived in a climate like California and just kept your tortoise outside all year round, that's what they need. But keeping a tortoise in the Midwest, in snowy conditions, year round, using some type of reptile, like a snake light, or a harsh basking bulb, that does bad things to a turtle and or tortoises in particular shell. So that's where the growth is. It's not necessarily in the numbers. I think it's holding pretty steady.
Okay.
We're just getting better.
So you're at a show.
Yeah.
You got to find a turtle that's 4 inches because
Yeah.
it's moving around a lot. Any other suggestions?
The eyes.
Okay.
Yeah. So turtle, you cannot assess the body condition of a turtle very easily because, if, like with a lizard, you're looking at, can you see the ribs? Well, that's all hidden by the tortoise's shell. So the eyes are the soft tissue that you can kind of glimpse into the healthy animal. So you want those to be nice and full, but not swollen. You don't want them to be sunken in. You want the eyes to be open. If they are closed, it would immediately open them when you picked up the turtle or tortoise. You want those eyes to be nice and clear and bright and full. You don't want to see any pus in the eyes. You don't want to see dry, crusty eyes. You can tell so much about a tortoise from its eyes. Water turtles, if their eyes, they have a vitamin deficiency, sometimes it'll show up by having these giant, swollen, crusty eyes. So avoid that. So yeah, really, if the turtle's not active, if it's sick, if it's not healthy, its eyes are going to look bad. So that's what I look for. If you have to feel the turtle or tortoise, don't just pick one by sight. Again, a turtle has a shell, so you can tell if a turtle is obese, right? Because the skin will be kind of stretched where the head and legs and stuff come from. But if it's underweight, you might be able to tell by looking at the back legs. Maybe the musculature isn't strong, but when you pick a turtle up, it should feel heavier than you expect. Every time you should pick that up and be like, oh, that's nice. If it's light, if it feels like it's stuffed with paper, if you pick it up and be like, oh, that's light, that's an unhealthy tortoise. You want to stay away from that because it's lost its fat reserve. Something is going bad, and you don't want to go there, especially as a new turtle or tortoise person. Yeah.
Say I'm starting as a new tortoise or turtle person. What are some of the things that I am not thinking about asking that I should ask?
Yeah, I think I think your where you live is something to think about really well, and how you want to keep that animal. You have options, and the turtles, most species worship the sun, and if you can keep that turtle or tortoise outdoors for some of its life, and a lot of its life, you absolutely should do that. As much natural sunlight as you possibly can. As opposed to like a chameleon, you kind of think of it as, okay, this is its enclosure. But here in the Midwest, we're thinking about keeping our turtles, for example, or tortoises outside as long as we can in the summer, because they just do better. And, if I were in California, I hear there's quite a lot of rats. That's a problem. That's a challenge because of the palm trees, is what my buddy told me. But I would be keeping my tortoises outside as much as I could. The further south I go, outside. So that's something you might not think about coming, from a lizard, buying a single enclosure that it will live in its whole life.
Okay.
So I saw CNC tortoises. They follow me on YouTube, and Yeah, you cannot import tortoises to Canada at all. Yeah, so they're very, very valuable there, and
Wow.
yeah, and so interestingly, that 1975, that was about the same time the salmonella scare was happening, and I don't know if that's the reason why they banned the import, but it was, I think, 1976, 75 that they ended up banning it. So yeah, not many tortoises in Canada.
Wow. It's crazy because you're more likely to get salmonella from your chicken
Yep.
cooked for dinner than
And,
any other source.
yep.
Being in the
And
medical field, I know that to be true.
yep.
That
Uh, yep.
you're 100 times more likely to get salmonella from mishandling your chicken before you barbecue it. Touching your chicken and touching the salad that you're going to give somebody at a picnic than you to
Yep.
get it from your animals, because usually you wash your hands, you do all kinds of other things. You don't put your hands in your mouth after you handle your reptiles. Now I know kids can do that, but still.
Yeah.
And so
So yeah.
confirming that the salmonella scare was a cause for that. So
Yeah.
it's just it's because this is their natural flora. I mean, we don't have an E. coli scare. That's the natural flora of humans
Yeah.
and most primates. So it's kind of like what
Yeah.
are we talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
but oh well, what can
Yeah.
you do?
And so different members of the TTPG have petitioned the USDA to overturn that ban, but they have been unsuccessful, and they've fought pretty hard. You know, I don't know what I would think if baby turtles could be sold on every corner and every little market for $10 a pop, right? Because that was the '60s, from what I've been told, and I have mixed thoughts on the 4-inch law.
Yeah, seeing all the turtles that are at Herps Alive, which is our local turtle rescue.
Yeah.
How many red ear sliders they have? I'm against
Yeah.
it. I'm against those little turtles.
Yeah.
But I also have a bunch of turtles in the tank that I have. So
Yeah.
it's kind of but I know I'm keeping them. But I got them from there. I got them from Herps Alive, because just like iguanas, people grow out of their tortoises or
Yep.
their turtles, and they get tired of them. I only have one turtle or tortoise out of the many that I have that I actually bought as a baby. The rest of them I adopted,
Yeah.
from the rescue, because that's what you call when you get something from a rescue, you're adopting it,
Yeah.
as opposed to buying it. So,
Yeah.
because there just isn't any need to go out
Yeah.
and buy them, because there are just too many of them that need adoption. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, when I become king, I'm going to put a lower limit to what the cheapest these animals can be sold. So, chameleon has to be sold for $400. Period.
All right.
And
So, Bill,
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of your ads or any flyers. Are you running for king, or are we just going to declare
Is that
you
an
king?
elected office?
Is it elected? I mean,
no.
do you have a plan
That's why
to
it's
take over the
difficult.
country, or you're going to just roll the tanks at some point and become king, or what's going
Sean,
to happen?
It's your show that a lot of things get announced.
All right.
But yeah, the thing is, the real problem is that all of these animals are sold so cheaply.
Yep.
And so it's very easy to buy and throw away or give it to kids and think it's a toy. If they had to pay $400 for a chameleon, a turtle, all of these things, we're saying, oh my gosh, I can't imagine paying $400 for a red-eared slider. Well, let's go ahead and change our reality to the point where you have to pay $400 for a red-eared slider. And then only the people who are willing to and are able to invest that money into and keeping an animal will be able to do it. So yes, that does drastically cut down on the demand, but I think that's a good thing, because that's not the demand we want. And I won't go into all my justifications for why this is a great idea, because the chances of me becoming king are pretty slim. Gonna have to really boost those Patreon numbers before I can fund this campaign.
All right. I think we did away with the king at some point, way back in
I say we bring it back.
1770 something. It was 76 was
Six.
what we talk about, but we really kind of started before then.
Yeah.
Listen,
yeah.
If we read history,
We just
I need you guys to be the wind behind my back, not the
okay.
spit in my face. Right?
okay. All right.
That's funny.
We can be both, Bill.
But and we won't spend a whole lot of time on turtles and tortoises, but knowing if something is a tortoise or is a turtle is really important, and particularly if you get something in between that needs both, right? So a lot of times on these Facebook groups that I'm in, someone will have a tortoise, for example, and they found it on the beach in Florida, like up in the sandy dunes, and then they'll be like, should I put this back in the ocean? Or I've seen pictures of a like a red-eared slider that's lived in an aquarium, maybe with a small water bowl in it, but just kept terrestrial, sometimes for years. And they can survive like that. They have some water. And so that for the complete novice, just understanding, okay, this little cute baby, is it aquatic? Is it not aquatic? If you go to a show that has some of these like Central American wood turtles that are quite imported a lot, you'll see them just with aspen bedding. So you might just like, hey, I want that turtle, and you set it up in aspen bedding and maybe have it for years like that, where it's really a semi-aquatic turtle and spends lots of time in the water. So that's the other thing you have to decide. Do you want a water turtle? Do you want a tortoise? Hands down, I think tortoises are great pets, because you don't have to manage the water, right? So I think we've probably all kept fish. Turtles are really, really dirty compared to fish, and you're constantly changing water, having to buy big filtration systems, and then you have to buy a giant aquarium when your red-eared slider gets 12 inches long.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that, because that's the reason why I never got into turtles.
Yeah.
Even though I thought they were really cool, is because I didn't want to deal with the water.
Yeah.
How is that done?
So one of the big inventions that has changed turtle keeping is the Waterland tub. And I don't know if you've ever heard of these, but they're made by a company, a small company, basically a turtle breeder. I think he's in California, Pete Janisma. I may not be pronouncing that correctly, but he created these like big, like the biggest one is 8 feet long, probably 3 feet wide. These some type of molded plastic tubs, and they have a built-in water section and a built-in land section, and that land section is deep enough for the turtle to lay its eggs. So that helps solve this problem. How do you give an aquatic turtle in an aquarium a place to lay the eggs? Mm-hmm. And then people, there's a lot of DIY filtration happens, in that kind of world. A lot of these people in Florida that are breeding turtles have pass-through systems. So literally the water is coming up from a well, going through their turtles' systems, and then going back out into the environment. And it's just constantly refreshed water. But, big canister filters, frequent water changes. It's a pain in the butt. So, the bigger the aquarium, the more filtration you have, the easier it is. The Waterland tubs make it pretty simple to have a completely enclosed setup for breeders, land and water in one. And it actually sort of minimizes the amount of water, kind of gives them, not too much, but, just the right amount. So it's a pain, people do it outside in ponds without filters and a lot of water lettuce and Oh, that other floating plant, water hyacinth. Some people, live in Florida or California. Yeah, you have big 8-foot round stock tanks that your turtles live in outside, and you don't have to filter it if you have, not as many. So, there's lots of options. You basically have to be a water quality expert and
Mhm.
and aquarist to have any sort of scale turtle operation.
Okay.
That's why I don't do it.
Mhm.
You can have a big
tortoises
pond
are
too.
better, but yeah. Mhm.
That's the easiest way. Just build a giant pond in your backyard and have temperate turtles if you live in a temperate environment, and they'll reproduce. That's a pretty good way to do it. Greg from Aquascape, if you're listening, come to my house and I'll let you build a pond.
You'll let him build a pond. All right. Okay. So so you got to figure out what type of turtle or tortoise you want. How
Yeah.
many species are there of turtles and tortoises?
So we're up over 300 now.
Okay.
And they, as the science gets better and we're researching, especially places like Africa, we're splitting species. So that's exciting. But there's a lot of choice. If you go to the right place. If you go to PetSmart, you're going to find Herman's tortoises, redfoot tortoises, and red-eared sliders or yellow-bellied sliders. That's about it. But if you go to a reptile show, if you go to the right reptile show, like the Daytona Expo, you might have 100 different species for sale. There's a lot of people.
100?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's probably the upper limit, but I would say there's probably a solid 100 species being bred in.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll give context to the reason why I'm saying, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Because if you are breeding a species,
yeah,
you can't continue breeding that species unless you find homes for the babies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the thing that blows up the chameleon community. As soon as like Madagascar opens or Tanzania opens, and the market is flooded with all these different species, we have one person dealing with one species and trying to work it out. So we have 50 different projects going on, and that is just way too much diversity for anybody to be able, for all of them to be able to find homes for their babies.
Yeah.
And we're nowhere near 100 species.
Yeah. The market is so much bigger for turtles and tortoises.
Wow. To be able to have 100 species dissipate into the community, that is significant.
Oh, yeah. I could probably go count 30 species for sale on, I don't know, just in the past 2 days posted to Fauna Classifieds or something like that. And if you go to Fauna Classifieds, you'll notice turtles and tortoises, that is one of the places to look for them. But people love turtles and tortoises, and there's a lot of niche breeders that just breed all kinds of animals. Many of these are members of the Turtle and Tortoise Preservation Group. One of the things that we encourage is people to look for other more interesting and appropriate species because they are available. They're just not available en masse to compete with red-eared sliders, redfoots, or Herman's tortoises.
Now, are there people seriously breeding or okay, so you have the mass breeders. That's a different situation.
Yeah, that's like the turtle farmers
community.
And then you have some very high-end turtle breeders in Florida who are breeding dozens of species, and kind of that's where all of these baby turtles go at pet shops or reptile shows all across the country from, maybe half dozen breeders in Florida. Sean and I at our show, you can go there and when they have, if you time the market right, you can pick one of 20 different baby turtle species all on a card table, basically.
What? with those, say we're just pulling the number out of the air, 20
Yeah.
different species,
Yeah.
are they all appropriate for the standard hobbyist?
That's a great question. I mean, most turtles are pretty easy, and there's a few that aren't. The alligator snapping turtles that they sell, that's
my
not
favorite.
appropriate for the average hobbyist. Buy a alligator snapping turtle for $50, that big. I see a lot of diamondback terrapins. They're an advanced species. They're selling a lot of like cooters, which get huge. They get 15 inches. Some of these cooters, and those are starting to show up in our ponds and rivers in Ohio. These like southern species. So the short answer is not really.
All right. Because I as a kid, I always loved the painted turtles.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that would be really cool. But
they're a great species. It's the one aquatic turtle I keep is an eastern painted turtle. It's a male. It's only about 5 inches. It lives in a 75-gallon aquarium. We have a filter on there, a couple fish to keep it company, and it's a great pet. I don't think you can beat the eastern painted turtle. You can buy them. You won't see them for sale in pet stores unless it's a reptile specific pet store and they've got it from one of these breeders that sells wholesale. But the other thing I do want to mention is online places, right? There's a lot of shops that have set up as kind of faceless turtle stores. And those places are not the place to buy your turtle or tortoise from. Anytime you buy online, please identify the person that is selling you that turtle or tortoise. Don't shop for them like a commodity. But unfortunately, that happens, and that happens even in any reptile business. But yeah. So go for it, Bill.
Yeah, I've got.
I already have them, Bill. I got 4 different species of turtles here, so I can't help you out here. You're gonna have to do it yourself this time. Bill's
I'm just going to
asking
sponsor
me
one
to
of
do-
Sean's turtles, and he'll
There you
send
go.
me a picture of it every month.
Yeah.
With a little note from the turtle telling you how it's been and what life
Yeah.
is like and
Thank
how
you
things
for
happen. Today I saw the
the treat.
the puppy walking by today.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really encourages the turtle market and the tortoise market for a lot of these more obscure species is that these animals are really rare in the wild in some cases. Like the Burmese star tortoise has become incredibly popular. Babies are retailing anywhere between, $600 and $900 for one tortoise. And it's basically it's functionally extinct in the wild, right? So there's a species you're not competing with imports at all.
Okay.
The species that I raise is still being imported, even though it is now listed as critically endangered in the wild. And I'm able to sell my animals at a premium that's approximately 4 times the price of the imported animal. So, yeah, that'd be really interesting to understand that better. Obviously, I'd love to have one of these Machacos Hills rainbow chameleons, and nobody's actively breeding them from what I can understand. But yeah, as long as there's a flood of those coming in from Kenya, the hingeback tortoise that I keep, when there was a flood of them, nobody would breed it. So it's just now they've become rare in the wild, the price goes up.
Yeah, and that's really the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So we have that same situation. I just think the turtle market is just so big. There's just a lot of people that want a pet turtle.
Okay.
All right, so we're now approaching an hour. Bill, any final questions for Tom?
I've had. I think I've done a pretty good job of interrupting with my questions.
All right. Tom, any final comments? Like you said, look for an active turtle or
Yep.
tortoise. Look for one that's bigger than 4 inches because of how old it is. Look for one that's eyes look good and what have you, and that you prefer tortoises over turtles because of the water issue. What about box turtles? I guess I probably never asked about that.
Yeah, so North American box turtles are more closely related to the painted turtle than they are the tortoise. They're great animals. They were very commonly kept and sold as pets in the 1980s and 1990s. I remember them being for sale. These animals were wild caught in states where that was legal, and that market doesn't exist anymore. So most states have shut that down, and it is illegal to collect box turtles from the wild. And that is why you don't see a flood of box turtles being sold in pet stores. And quite frankly, the box turtles that are available for sale and are legal, they're being bought up as hatchlings direct from breeders. So nobody, it's hard to spend the money to raise a turtle up to 4 inches so that you can then sell it to PetSmart, who can then sell it across in mass. So that's why we don't see box turtles in pet stores anymore as cute little 4 to 5 inch turtles, because they were plucked from the wild in states where it was legal to do that. And those loopholes have been closed.
Are there any other locations for box turtles that are around the world, or?
So, interestingly, there were the Asian box turtles, and at one time they were thought to be related to the North American box turtles, but genetic work showed that they are not. They are more related to the geomydid Asian turtles. So, like the Asian leaf turtle and the Reeves turtle. So even though they look a lot like our box turtles, and have a hinge just like our box turtles, they're not related anymore. And one thing I didn't talk about, above the turtle and tortoise branch, there's this major division in the turtle order, and that's between the cryptodires and pleurodires. Cryptodires are all the turtles that you and I know: sea turtles, snapping turtles, painted turtles, box turtles, tortoises. The pleurodires are the side-necked turtles. They are only in the southern hemisphere, and they're they're all water turtles. But if you've ever seen a turtle with like a foot-long neck, that's one of the snake neck turtles. That is a side neck. And that's a really ancient lineage. And so really, if you want to divide turtles and tortoises at a very high level, you're actually dividing them by the anatomy of their neck. Snake necks are cool. I would love to have one. I've never kept any kind of side neck turtle, though.
That's awesome. Okay. Any other comments?
No, I really appreciate you guys having me on. I love talking turtles.
This is great, as always, Tom. You're a pleasure to listen to. Stay tuned, because in 2 weeks, I've got a podcast that Tom and I did a couple weeks ago, all about his life, his what he's doing and what he's up to. Tells more than we've heard now. Even tells how he got his nickname. So we'll leave that for then. But that will be out in 2 weeks. I do the podcast on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday is when I plan to release them as time goes on. We're only on number 3, so we'll see how well that plan goes. But not a promise, but just an idea of when to expect them. And I thank Bill for being here again. Tom, I thank you for being here again and being a loyal listener, because you're always in the chat anyways if you're not here. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much. Have a great night, everyone.